I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of Trustees of North Lamar to order. It has been posted as required by law. All board members are present with the exception of Mr. Stone and Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin's absent due to the death of his niece. Please keep those in your prayers. At this time we'll have invocation pledge. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you at this time, Lord. Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord, and we thank you for life. Lord, I just ask you to be with this meeting today, Lord, that everything that we do will be pleasing to you. And we just ask you to be with each and every family member here, Lord. Just watch over them and their families. We ask you to be with Dr. Adams as he's separating from our family here at North Lamar and going other directions, Lord. And just ask him to be with him and Crystal and Kobe, Lord. Lord, we just once again ask you to be over our faculty here, Lord, and our students. Lord, you know all the corruption and meanness that's going on in the world, Lord. We just ask you to put your hand of protection around each and every one of them here on this campus, Lord, and in their everyday lives, Lord. Lord, we thank you once again for everything you blessed us with. These things we ask in Christ Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That will take us down to item number 3, action and discussion items. Take a 3A, consideration approval resolution extended depository contract with Guaranty Bank and Trust for funds North Lamar ISD. Dr. Adams?
So again, we have a third year or a third opportunity to extend our depository contract with Guaranty, and I spoke with Mr. Nutt and emails with Mr. Roddy as well, and they're here to answer any specific questions you guys may have about the cap. The last correspondence we had with them is that the 2.5 would only be in place for the deposits and not the CDs, but they're here to answer any specific questions if you have them. I mean, my recommendation would be to go ahead and proceed with the resolution.
Isn't that what we talked about before, that if we took the cap off of the CDs that we would?
Correct. That was the one in question, was the CD aspect.
I'll make a motion that we accept Dr. Adams' recommendation.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Richardson. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Costin. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
So this requires.
Thank you, sir.
This requires a notary, and so while they're here, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all sign this, and then Cheryl's here, and she can notarize this.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Adams. Thank you.
You're going to put your name on it, acknowledge me before you do. Okay, acknowledge me. Acknowledge before me. Lamar County. Texas on February 26th. Okay, by bank officer.
That would be Jim Nutt.
Well, he's not here.
Oh, but he signed it.
He's really, she has supposed to be here.
Okay. Do you have his number?
Who?
Jeff?
I got it right.
They can't be very far.
Yeah, so it's fine.
He'll have to be out there. I got him here.
got it?
I think he's outside.
Oh, sure he is. He's coming back.
We got him. Thank goodness.
Have to postpone lunch one more
I was
minute.
gonna say,
Slow
just a
moving.
second. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's
Okay,
what happens
now
when you put two
Warren
Razorbacks
County,
together.
Texas on 36. Bye.
What are you trying to say?
Come on.
Okay, I'm gonna just find one more thing, but let me just. Okay. Have you sign your name and address right there? And I have to have your fingerprint, then I'll draw blood.
It's kind of like opening a new account. We about do the same thing.
Okay, and I think that is.
All right.
that is it.
Thank you guys once again.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
That takes us down to 3B, consider and possible action on energy management system set points.
Okay, so there have been some questions about the energy management system and the heating and stuff. So Rick, myself, and Kelsey with Ideal Impact, we met last Wednesday to go over some set points and have made some adjustments in that process. But Kelsey's here to answer any questions specifically in regards to Ideal Impact and any of the things that is happening on their side. I mean, there were some mechanical issues on our side that have been addressed, and we've taken care of those. I think there may be still a couple that we're waiting on some issues to be resolved. But these guys are here to answer questions if you have them.
I have a couple questions. The question's been a lot of just me, a lot of phone calls from teachers that they were freezing to death when it was cold. Temperature was just kind of tell us what's going on, tell us what's been happening, because there has been a lot of complaints.
Sure. So when we kicked off the project, one of the first things we do with Dr. Adams, and we had at that point all of the principals together, is we decided on set points, because we have to have somewhere to start when we start installing new controllers. And at that point we had decided 68 for heating and 72 for cooling. And the reason we have this 4 degrees of separation, we call it a dead band, where we don't want units to be fighting each other simultaneously, heating and cooling. And we also want to provide consistency throughout the building so that teachers and students know what to expect, because we realize we're not going to satisfy every person, because we all vary in what we find comfortable. So we started with 6872, and this was, back in early January, mid-January, that we started installing controllers, and it was really cold. So when we had that 68 heating number, that was really cold compared to the weather outside and the temperatures that we were experiencing. So we had this conversation with Dr. Adams about a week later and said, how about we bump that up to 70? So let's heat to 70 and then cool to 74. And at that point, we gave the teachers the ability to bump their room up to 70 degrees. Because we were using a comfort feedback form, so the teachers are able to fill out a response and let us know how they're feeling. And so we see those, Rick's able to see those, and just get their feedback on, are they hot, are they cold? And we did get quite a lot of feedback that people were cold, so we did go ahead and bump that up to 70. And then this past week, we actually scheduled all of the rooms at 70 degrees so that the teachers weren't having to actually override their rooms up that 2 degrees. And the feedback that we've received since then has been very little in comparison to what we were receiving. And in fact, now we're receiving, hey, can you put mine back to 68? I'm actually a little bit warm now. So it was a starting point, I guess. Yeah, as you can say, where we started with. And as we start to move through different seasons with you guys, we're super early on in the project, and every season is going to be different. And for us to learn how your buildings react to weather and how the teachers and students respond to their comfort level, there's going to have to be adjustments that are made, especially throughout the first year, as we just discover that together. But
I'm good with all that. My thing was, I looked at my notes and my phone calls, it was a 2-week time frame that nothing was happening. And
Okay.
is that something that's going to take 2 weeks normally to get this going? 70 degrees is the top of what it's going to be for their temperature. To explain that process a little bit.
sure, so you guys get to pick the set points. It's not something that we choose. So it would be something that Dr. Adams and the principals and the administration decides. We just do our best to tell you what we've seen other places and what we know works best. But that adjustment can be made, day of. If you decide, hey, we need to change set points. Now the caveat is that the set points have to be changed at every controller. So that
Every
means
single controller?
yes, every
Okay.
single controller.
Okay.
So it does take time.
Sure.
It's not an instant
Sure.
thing, but it can be done very quickly. The second portion to that is that when we do make set point changes, and this is probably why you had that 2 weeks of time frame, we want to give it time, because if we change set points every other day,
I understand.
that's going to be hard to keep up with. And we also have to let the buildings acclimate to the changes that we have made. So not only the buildings, but the people now knowing what to expect. Hey, my room's a little bit colder than normal, I need to bring a jacket.
Another question was out in the CT department. They're talking about one of the controllers is way up on one of the machines. So if it has to be, how are you going to adjust that in that situation?
Right, so there were a number, you're talking about the ag buildings?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some unit heaters over there. We did go ahead and move some of those controllers. We ran some conduit and ran them down farther, 3 or 4 feet off of the unit. And some of them we were able to put on the wall, but some of them are just hanging in the middle of the room, so
Sure.
it makes it a little harder.
Sure.
The main reason for that was just that was where the existing controller was.
Right.
So we just went ahead and put it where it was initially. But you will need a ladder in some of those instances to reach where the thermostat is.
Cool. When we talk about, again, I know we did the committee meeting last night. That was another topic, as Rick knows he was there. When we talk about where we at, what problems are we having? What's some of the problems that we got to fix to make this fly better?
Well, we talked about this before, and with Dr. Adams, each building we have is kind of like, Stone's different from the high school. Everett's different from Stone. It's different buildings. It's colder at Stone than it would be or at Parker, because Parker has no floor insulation, stucco, single pane windows. It's a little harder to heat that building, so is Stone. So each one of them's going to acclimate different. But we also have, Bailey and Higgins, where we have fresh air intakes that are just open to the outside air, and humidity pulls in the building through those into the attic. The same thing with cold air. Cold air just pours in the building. These buildings were built a long time ago. They're not built like these new schools where you can operate dampers for fresh air intake or anything like that. There's no way to control that at those two buildings. Just like we're sitting here now, there's an open vent. There's so many feet. There's one on the hallways at Bailey and Higgins too. It's just wide open to the outside air. So it gets colder quicker. The heat doesn't stay as much. That's the problems we're running into when it's cold. And we talked about maybe having to set Stone a little different. And Parker, I figured we'd have more complaints at Parker than we did Stone, but it ended up being Stone and not Parker. And because Stone's built on pier and beam, there's nothing down there, no insulation in the floor, nothing. The whole part of Stone.
Most of my complaints
Parker
from the high school.
Uh-huh.
People were complaining that calling me was from the high school.
Yeah, we were getting hit with a lot of complaints at the high school and the hallway areas. That it was too cold. That's when we were having that cold spell. I couldn't do nothing at the time. Dr. Adams, he was out of town, family business, and I talked to Kelsey about it, and we agreed that we would meet with Dr. Adams as soon as he got back, so he can make the decision to bump that temperature, and try to make everybody happy. Now, you're not gonna make everybody happy, there's no way, okay, guys?
No, we don't.
And if we open it up, then we're not gonna do our savings.
Right.
Okay? My biggest fear was they're bringing all these space heaters, okay? They're bringing all the space heaters in, tripping breakers. Our infrastructure for our electrical cannot handle space heaters. We were tripping breakers, we fought it for 2 mornings in a row with all space heaters people were bringing from home and shutting classrooms down, and you know, so that's because they were too cold. That's something, we don't have an energy management policy in place that I know of. You know, that's something we need to talk about in the future, is getting a policy set up, because there again, with the space heaters that are coming out here, of course, we got some information from Kelsey, me and Dr. Adams did, telling us what space heaters we could actually use, but, I mean, not a whole lot of people's going to jump out and order those, and they're just going to bring something from home. And when that starts happening, that's when we start having issues. But we're not going to see savings if we
And we're pulling more
if we
electricity
keep going,
because we're plugging in
keep
space
going that
heaters.
direction.
Right.
So, you know, what outweighs the space heaters or bumping temperature up? You know, so we waited till Dr. Adams got back to town before we sat down and made the decision to bump it up. Now, we bumped the temperature up like she said, and so every hour the teacher's got to get up and go bump that temperature up back to 70. Okay. Now they've redone it this past week where they don't have to do that. If it's set on 70, it's going to remain 70 in that room, unless there's a mechanical issue. We got 3 areas that we got mechanical issues in right now. We're waiting on parts. 2 of is which we have 2 bad units on top of Higgins that back when the bond was going on, was going, you know, y'all were doing the bond election or going to do a bond election. They told them not to fix them because they're very expensive. And they're 2 oldest units on top of Higgins. And I think some of y'all at the meeting last night kind of went over that a little bit. And we have 1 at Bailey that's in the same boat. So things have calmed down. Now, take in mind, since we bumped that up to 70, that throttle range is 4 degrees. So now that means cooling's at 74. They're not going to be able to drop it below 74. So you're going to have some people that are going to be hot at 74. So then we got to go back in there and move everything again.
I had a person tell me this morning that all state buildings along the state of Texas, that they have the same type of energy management system, and their buildings are set on 70 and 74. That's their policy. So that's something to keep.
Well,
And I'll say this, I mean, the email that Kelsey sent me yesterday said they were getting anywhere from 20 plus responses a day as far as the I guess the comfort levels of the rooms. And since we've made the adjustment here, it says that they've only received 7 since last Wednesday as far as comfort levels. So
Yeah, I mean, it's growing pains, just like we talked about. I mean,
And communication.
well, yeah, I mean, we tried this, it didn't work, so we moved on to something else.
Sure.
Okay, and it has come down a lot since, I don't remember what day it was
I
we
mean,
decided to do
one of the
that.
important things is we have to have the data to support it. So I mean, when folks are complaining to us, I mean, I know it sounds repetitive, but you need to fill out this form so that we have data and we can run analysis on this to say, hey, is there a specific area that's having differences? Because if it is, it may be something mechanical instead of the management system. So, and that's kind of the process that we've been going through.
We have special need kids that the temperature, we can't, you know, they can be cold. And at 68, we had areas that we had to adjust because of that.
But we've adjusted. That's
Yes, we've adjusted those since then. I let Dr. Adams know what was going on, you know, and we've changed that set point since then. You know, I feel like when it gets warm, we're going to probably run into some walls again and have some issues. But we need to really think about space heaters, because guys, if they're going to bring space heaters, we're not going to save any money.
So we need to look at a policy for that.
Yes, sir.
I'm good. Maybe that'll answer some questions for
Do
folks.
you have anything that you need, Ricky, to finish up on our side so they can get theirs done?
No, well, those units that are down that we hadn't made the decision to replace, we gotta get that done, and then, you know, they still, you know, the lighting's gotta be finished. We still have some units that doesn't have controllers on, they've gotta finish, but they're working on that as we speak. I worked on a bunch yesterday, so, I mean,
We're just
still
not
have,
finished.
still have stuff to do, still have
Just not
stuff to finish.
So how far along do y'all think you got 80% of it completed, or?
We're like 90%
90%.
complete. I think I counted, there's about 10 units left that when our teams first came through were completely inoperable. And if we couldn't get it to heat or cool, we didn't install a controller on it. So the process for that is for Rick's team to get that unit running and functional, and then we will come back and put a controller on it. So I think there's about 10 that are outstanding.
We're down to
right
3 now, 2 at Higgins and 1 at Bailey. Is what, you know, we gotta make a decision as a
Those are
district.
replace,
Huh?
those were the ones you talking about we have to replace.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah. They've been down for 4 years. And I talked to Tommy about it. I called him because he was here when, this is before I got here. He said, well, Rick, they told me not to do anything with them because we thought we were gonna pass a bond. So it kinda slipped through the, you know, the basket a little bit. So we gotta make a decision on that, but we need that policy in place because otherwise we're not gonna say that what we're doing is it's not gonna work.
Can we get something for maybe the next board meeting, Rick?
I can try to get something put together by then. We can see what happens.
Yeah, if you can. Some-
Okay. Look at it.
I'm good.
Y'all got anything else to share?
Just know that we're here for you guys, and we want to be in communication with you. And I know as we transition, there's going to be some other bumps in the road as well, and we're totally here for you guys. So if you ever have questions or concerns, just let us know. And as we move into cooling season, like Rick said, we're probably going to have to adjust that 74
Revisit.
for cooling because people are going to be a little bit warm. But we're happy to do that. So.
In saying that, I mean, I know Dr. Adams is leaving. I mean, he's the one that controls that. I mean, it has to be coming from him. So what are we gonna set in place from the time Dr. Adams leaves till we get these things ironed, you know, things smoothed out and get things running smooth?
Wow. Let me ask you this. I know I have a little experience with this as a board member, obviously. Why are you not in charge of it also?
Well, I mean, at first, when we first done this, it's, you know, it goes through the captain of the ship so we can
Sure.
get things done and set a set point that everybody agreed to at the table with the principals.
Sure.
So.
And once you get through the newness, there won't be as much of this.
No, there won't be as
Yeah.
much. And here's the
sense.
thing, it's just in case something, because I don't know what we're gonna do from the time Dr. Adams leaves till we get an interim, or whatever we decide to do.
Mhm.
You know, what are we gonna do till then? If we need to make a change or something. That's all I'm asking. It doesn't matter to me who does it. I just know, I wanna know what process we're gonna take, because she's not gonna, the ideal impact's not gonna change a thing on my work, it's gonna have to be on superintendent's work.
And I mean, and I'll say this, I mean, for me to say I know more about this than this gentleman right here, that would be inaccurate. So I mean, I wouldn't be against, you know, giving him authorization to say, hey, from this point forward until we have a
Especially
permanent
change, yeah.
you know, you can handle these if y'all are okay with that.
I
Well,
agree with
Mr.
that.
Hernandez, do you know what our agreement is with these folks? Have you seen the contract or anything? Do you
No,
know?
no, sir, not, just discussing things with them and Dr. Adams in meetings, I have not seen the contract. I don't know.
But here's what he's trying to say, and I think that's what I'm hearing Dr. Adams say. Potentially here, you're gonna have an intern.
Right.
That person may or may not know.
Right.
Rick's gonna be as sharp about it as anybody got it right this
I
minute.
agree.
I would say this, with these two, I'm pretty comfortable, anyway, they're gonna work together.
Right,
Surely the next person's gonna be able to do the same thing, but we gotta have somebody.
yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know what the weather's gonna be like. You know, if it turns off warm, as Ms. Kelsey is saying, we're gonna have trouble. People are gonna start calling because that 74 is the lowest they can go.
Why don't we do that?
I can shoot an email to Kelsey and Rick and just saying, hey, you have the authorization to,
Yeah.
you know, if there are questions with regards to making changes, Rick has authorization to make
Try to
those.
get you a copy of that contract so you know what the time frame of warranties and all that stuff are, so
Yeah.
you can keep up with that too. And when a new person comes in, or they can get with you.
I'm good.
Well, I just think that we need some way to make a quick response.
I mean, you know, like 2 weeks, these teachers and these students were freezing.
And in fairness, Jason.
Very, very, very uncomfortable. I
Well-
mean, some of them would say they couldn't even hold their pencil. Their hand was so cold when they were taking assessment tests.
But even a lot of that stuff we're talking about back in January, I mean, we probably weren't even 50% done at that point. I mean, so there were a lot of, I mean, if we're talking about last week, I mean, as soon as stuff started coming in, I mean, I was in constant contact with Kelsey and Rick and saying, hey, what adjustments need to be made? I mean, we had some stuff down at the high school. I know like the entire gym and auditorium and all that stuff was due down to a boiler not being up. I mean, so there were some mechanical issues too, but to say that there wasn't any response, that would be inaccurate.
Well, I'm just saying that we need, I mean, someone that can respond and not have to,
Now, that's
you
a
know,
work
wait
in
a week or
progress,
two.
too. You know,
Yeah.
that's, take in mind that the boiler system only controls the gyms and the auditorium and some of the kitchen area. It doesn't control the classrooms. Now, they're still working with the actuators. There's an actuator on each unit that controls that hot water coming to that air handler, okay? They've had to change them again. I think they're in the process now because the first set wouldn't work. They'd work, but they just wouldn't open the valve all the way, okay? Now, in their defense, when I got here, we did not have a system where we could put chemicals in our boiler system, in our water system to keep the corrosion down. When I come in, that's one of the first things that Dr. Adams, when he come on board, that we took care of. We've got a tank in there and we're putting chemicals in the system so it doesn't corrode. You can't run that water system without any chemicals or benzene in it because all it's going to do is corrode. So that's what they're fighting now with the new actuators and stuff. And I could show you a picture and it'd blow your mind how corroded and rusted the inside of our system is. The stuff we're putting in is expensive, but it's supposed to start taking care of that, but it's not going to happen overnight. But Dr. Adams knows, I mean, I've informed him and he knows, and we started putting that stuff in, and now we've got a system going, and it's starting to loosen up a little bit, but they've run into maybe 2 or 3 that look pretty rough, so we're getting that worked out.
So I'll do this in the transition process, just so there is no lapse. I mean, with your blessing, it doesn't require any action, but with your blessing, I'll authorize him to handle this stuff.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Takes us to 3C, consider possible action on celebration date for the Lance Johnson Tennis Complex on Alden George Way.
I asked for this to put on there just because we talked about this a while back.
Right.
And we talked about doing something like this and didn't want this to get away.
Slip by.
Yes.
Are we not going to add the Roy Chadwick Administration Office and the James Dawson Athletic Facility that we haven't done anything for
We never
either?
did do that. So
Nope. Why can't you just lump it all in one?
We can do
That's
it
what
all
we
together.
originally talked about.
Is there a certain date that,
I would say,
2 calls right now.
well, here's the thing about it is, it kind of goes about what Jason said we'll go. It is right this week, but next week it's just supposed to be colder. But I would do it around, we said we were going to do it as soon as we could.
right.
Okay, well, my thing is, if we said that's what we're going to do, that's what we need to be doing, okay?
Pretty soon.
Now, and I understand, we also talked about there's one there that we know we need to kind of hurry for, from what we hear,
Right,
okay?
right.
But we also understand he's kind of in a feeble state, so either do we set it around a baseball game and a softball game? Do we set it around, do we just do a Saturday standalone? You know, when we talk about a celebration, what are we going to do?
Carly, you got any ideas?
I'll do it when it's warmer.
I agree. Maybe drier too, but like a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock after church, where everybody gets out of church, goes eat, and they're still dressed nicely. And,
I don't know if I'd do it on Sunday.
okay, don't do it on.
We did it.
I would say you'd probably have less participation. this Sunday.
Yeah.
And if you did it maybe with, in conjunction with a Paris game, you might
Yes.
have,
Right.
bring the community
You
together.
could,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
And you got, there's, I think it's the second round of girls, if I'm thinking, they'll both be playing here at the same time.
When do you have the date on that?
No, I mean, I could look it up.
Yeah.
Carlos?
I bet Carl could do it quickly. Well, and at least then we could get the word out that this is when we're
Right,
going
we
to do this, is what's
don't
going to happen.
do it next week and not get the word out to folks.
Right.
And that's supposed to be in April, right?
I think that's right.
Instead of April?
It'd be the, if I'm
This
not
would be
mistaken,
second round of
the
district,
second
it would
round of
be in
district
April.
games, yeah, where you're both at the same place. So the rest of the time, the first round, one will be over there and one will be over here. But, and I don't have a problem with that, I'm just,
And where do you want to hold this at? I mean, because you spread from one end of the campus to the other, so I mean, that's just whatever.
you know, you could do something in the parking lot there in front of the,
You killed 3 of them, I mean, 3 of them are
Right
right
there
there.
at the.
Yeah, I mean, that's-
And if it's raining, move it inside the multi-purpose building. Yeah,
That's
that'd
an
be,
idea.
that'd be great to have it right in there.
I mean, don't you think so?
I think that would probably be best.
That's kind of the key of where most everything is, right? You know? Are you gonna do something for the families that's gonna?
We'll set the date, we'll work all that out with
Yeah.
Carla. She'll help us on all that.
I'm not seeing it right now, but I see a date at the April the 5th. That seems a little early.
Can you grab my laptop? Just not before I get ready.
Do we have, let me ask you this, Dr. Evans, do we have to have action on that date? That's what I'm saying.
This
That's
is,
just
that's nothing to do with action.
Public event.
Yeah. That's
Just
something.
set, I mean, we can just agree to set the date here. and move on. So we played Paris. Well, there's 2 on there. That doesn't make any sense.
We won't play, you won't be a district during spring break.
No, I just have a part here, Steve.
Looks like we're playing each team 3 times.
No, you're in soccer.
Well, it says varsity baseball. It says Liberty Island, Liberty Island, Liberty Island.
Maybe baseball's doing something.
So maybe since we're just a 5-team district, we're playing everybody 3 times maybe.
Maybe. We didn't do that in softball.
So we played Paris at home on April 23rd and 26th from what I see in baseball.
26 is away. That's what I'm
26
seeing.
is, oh, that's right. So we play on, I see a March 22nd at home and a April 23rd at home for baseball. So let me look at softball real quick.
Let me go back.
I just knew in years past, the second round of playoffs, they were at the same place, I thought. But we also, in years past, had 6 teams in the district.
March 22nd, softball has a bye.
When did we play Paris?
They play Paris here on April the 5th.
How close is that to a baseball game?
It's kind of in
Where's
between
baseball?
both.
That's why they don't play at the same time.
They're not trying to say.
But April 23rd, they both play at the same time, though.
No, sir.
No, they
No.
don't.
We don't, softball, we don't play.
I will say this, April
We play home and home.
April 22nd, which is that the day I said we played Paris here? The softball has a bye on the 22nd.
They do that softball.
April the 5th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, we're trying to get as fast as we can.
I think the thing about this, Ms. Carter, help us with this. I think if we could start setting something up and let people know we're doing what we're trying to do, plus you're giving it, by the 1st of April, sometimes the weather's a little better. I mean, I have seen 70-degree days the 1st of April, and I have seen 20-degree days the 1st of April.
Would it be safe to say you want to set it for April the 5th with a,
I'd set it for April 5th if it's cold, move inside.
Now, April 5th, baseball's away.
Yeah.
What's the one that's at?
but that's softball.
The 22nd, baseball is at home, and
Mhm.
softball has a bye.
I think that would be a.
That's
date.
March 22nd.
That's a long time.
I was just
How is
thinking,
Coach
since we
doing?
was,
I don't, guys, I
3
don't
days.
know.
thinking since he was.
That was just a suggestion, we was gonna a suggestion for a date, you're not hurting my feelings. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I just.
But you gotta make some
Go back
plans.
and look at some dates and look at the calendar.
And email us and we
And
can do it
email
that
you some
way.
dates if that would
Yes.
help.
Sure.
Okay, so we're in agreement to work with Carla, send us a date and get it out there? Okay,
And some ideas, you know, I mean, I think we need to give the family some little something.
yeah.
I would say a plaque or
Say a
remembrance
reception
or
and-
something, yeah, some
Yeah.
cookies and fun.
We can do the reception right in the amphitheater facility.
If it's bad, if it's.
Well, I mean, even if it's nice, like you said, it up inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say let Miss Carla handle that, be the point on that, and she can do
All
that.
right. Okay, that moves us down to 3D, consider selection on a 4-day instructional week. And we just want to know where we're at.
Sure. So we met with the District Improvement Committee last Wednesday, which includes school personnel, it includes parents, it includes some business representatives and other folks. And had a good, I don't know, probably about a 2-hour conversation on the 4-day instructional week last Wednesday. A lot of pros, a lot of cons. I think that it was consensus of the group that they would like to look at this further. I mean, I don't remember anybody saying this is absolutely out of the question, but they were concerned that they don't feel like they're ready to move forward for the 1920 school year.
I agree with that.
They would like to have some further information to make an educated decision before that decision was made. So that was kind of the unanimous decision of the committee, is that they're not saying no, this isn't an option, but we don't want to rush into a decision that would be could have some, has a lot of importance with it.
My thoughts were, and I guess help me if I'm wrong, we're kind of exploring this as an opportunity, but don't we need hey, we're looking at the calendar, so we're talking about this is when we would start school, this is when we'd end, this is the day, this is the day.
Again, and just the conversation that we had with them Wednesday was reiterated several times that this is just information.
Right.
I mean, nothing that you see today is a recommendation or suggestions. This is just information that we have gathered and are sharing with you so that you have the opportunity to make an educated decision as well. So, I mean, we showed them I showed them the sample calendar of Athens ISD. We showed them an example of what an 8-period bell schedule could look like if it was, adapted to that 4-day instructional week, just so they could wrap their brain around something, just to see. But that's all that it was. It was just providing information. And there were a lot of good questions.
Right.
We had people that were asking questions about academics. We had people that are asking questions about athletics and band. We had folks, asking about the aspects of could it be a marketing tool for good teachers and possibly bringing back kids and stuff. So, a lot of good questions, a lot of good conversations. They were just concerned about the time frame and moving too fast.
How do you feel we should go forward from here? From where we're at, the questions I've been getting mostly are from community folks. I didn't vote for this, but when are they talking about the date? And I've said, hey, call Dr. Adams.
Right. So what we talked about, some different scenarios last Wednesday is meeting with the campus improvement committees and saying, hey, if this were the scenario, and then put some what ifs, involved in that. If it was a 8 to a 4:30 schedule, Monday through Thursday, would this work for this academic class? Would it work for CTE? Would it work for elementary? Would it work for band? Would it work for athletics? Are there tweaks that could be made just so that we're getting input from the campuses as well?
Right.
And then that would be my suggestion for a first step, is just to gather more input.
How about a modified block schedule? We talked about some of that.
So there are again hundreds of different schedules that exist. Putting something together that would be best suited for Northland Mara would ultimately be the goal.
Right.
Can I sit here and tell you that a 4-day instructional week with a block schedule that we currently have, or a modified or an 8-period would be best? I don't. There's not enough data out there. Especially with Texas schools. I only know of 2. One that is currently doing it in Athens that will implement it for next year. So to be able to contact a lot of Texas folks and say, hey, is this working, and what adaptations would you make? Just the data isn't out there for us right now to gather that. So still a lot of questions and concerns for folks, but again, I don't think that it's a suggestion that has been swept away that this couldn't work. There's definitely some interest there.
Did the school year lengthen to get in all the minutes?
So I know Athens ISD, they are starting the first Monday in August. And then they are going till like the last week, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to the last week in May.
Well,
So it is lengthened.
They lengthened 2 weeks on the front and a week extra on the end. It's what I've done, 55 minutes before
I'd
that.
have to look at.
I think, I'm going by memory, what the guy told me, so.
I mean, basically, they kept the same holidays that, you know, you would normally have for your Thanksgivings and spring breaks and Christmas, and they kind of scattered some other ones throughout the calendar. Now, one thing that we did talk about, you know, right now we have a lot of early releases and stuff. From the minute aspects, I mean, the minutes would be kind of spot on, you know. If you started that first day in August and got out the last Friday in May, you know, the minutes are right there. I mean, so there is no wiggle room to take really early releases and stuff, but with already being off on Fridays, you know, you need to get out early Thursday. You know, maybe, I think what we decided is maybe, if we went this route, is maybe get out the Thursday early before Christmas and maybe the Thursday before the last day of school. And then you're good minute-wise. And if you had to make up a day because of bad weather or sickness or something, you can always come to school on Friday. So you wouldn't have to have those sick days or bad weather days made up into the calendar. You already have those days available.
I understand that Athens, I think, too, said they're going Tuesday through Friday because of extra.
They're going Monday through Thursday, but they are doing it because Trinity Valley, they do all their CTE stuff, or do a lot of CTE stuff, and their dual credit stuff with, and they're shut down on Fridays. And so they wouldn't have the ability to have a relationship with them. So that was their driving factor for Fridays.
Gotcha. So just more time.
Right. Yep.
That was good.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? None, we'll move to item 4. This will be an executive session. The board will conduct a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, Subchapters D and E, Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.074, personnel matters, discussion of superintendent's contract and pending matters, discuss employment of superintendent of schools. So at this time we'll close, open at 12:42.